a historical, here's a historical photo of how they would go out to survey where the dam should be put in. So like Dr. Bondi said, the rocks had to be right, so strong enough rocks, and then a great place to build, to have enough space for this reservoir. So here are some men here scouting out some of Black Canyon. So the Hoover Dam provides flood control and protection from drought. So before the dam was made, down in the south, there was massive floods. Farmers sometimes didn't have enough water for their fields. So during drought years, they would lose their crops. And they wanted to be able to expand the growth here in the Southwest. And of course, water is a very important resource. So that's when the Hoover Dam started the development or the vision of it to be built. So here are the men staking out where we should do this here in Black Canyon right behind us. So before 1935, Lake Mead was just the Colorado River. So in order to build the dam, they had to first divert the river. So where's that water gonna go? They had to blast through these very strong igneous or volcanic rock that would later be the foundation for the dam, but they had to divert it. So here's some pictures of some explosions going on, and you see these tunnels way down here. So 2 on each side, these were the diversion tunnels. So 1.5 million tons of rock was excavated in 13 months, daily blasting explosions. High scalers are the men that were hanging off the edge of the cliffs on ropes to prepare the rocks for the blast by inserting the dynamite. So 4 tunnels, like I said, they were massive, 56 feet in diameter, averaged 4,000 feet long to divert the river. So after the river was diverted, there was a ton of sediment, river sediment at the bottom, 138 feet of sediment they had to remove to get to the bedrock. You have to have a strong base, obviously, to hold up and support a dam of this size. So they had to take out all this sediment to get down to the bedrock, and then they could start pouring the foundation. So the foundation is actually 660 feet wide of concrete. So at the base of the Hoover Dam, a couple football fields or more. So what they had to do, kind of like Legos, they made concrete bricks or big that held a whole bunch of concrete together and pieced them together to build that foundation. So where did they get all that concrete? Where did they get all the resources to build this dam? Well, they had to do more engineering, and they created a rail line to bring materials, machinery in. And there's actually, before I get into the concrete, I'll even point out that there is a historic railroad trail at the Boulder City entrance of Lake Mead National Recreation Area, where you can go visit this old railroad path through 5 tunnels. It's a really cool hike. So if you're ever out in Boulder City or the lake, you can go do the trail. It's graded, so it's good for strollers, wheelchairs, families. It's a really cool historical trail that you can still walk on. Anyway, so we had trains coming in to bring these resources, to bring these supplies. And gravel and sand was first. So the Hoover Dam sits right there, split Nevada and Arizona in half. Right? So we're on the Nevada side here. On the other side is Arizona side. So these trains would go and mine or collect gravel and sand on the Arizona side, and then rail them back to the Nevada side where they would be processed for concrete. This concrete would then be lowered to the base of the Hoover Dam by 9 cableways. And they would deliver these huge buckets of concrete to the dam site. At the peak, there was 1 bucket every 78 seconds going down to the base. So they build the base, and that's the foundation, and then they kept gradually going up and up and up. So then I'll let Josh talk about the spillways as we're coming to the completion of the dam, and the hydroelectric power plant, which is also a very important resource of the dam.
All right, so like Becky mentioned, one of the purposes of building Hoover Dam originally was for flood management. So the Colorado River, during spring runoff from all of the snow that goes up into the Colorado Rockies and the other Rocky Mountain ranges from which the catchment of the Colorado River drains down into this part of the Southwest deserts, in this case the Mojave Desert, those seasonal floods were always a problem for settlers, for people that lived along the waterways here in the Southwest. And so flood management is always one of those side effects of dam management, is trying to control the outflow of water. That's a whole completely different topic if you want to get into flood management. So knowing that at some point Lake Mead could potentially fill to capacity and would potentially, during one of these great big floods, maybe one of these 100-year events, 500-year events that we talk about here in the Southwest, that there would be a need at some point for flood management of the dam itself. So here we have excavation of what are the overflow outlets. And so over the spillways, there's great big tunnels that are over, let's see, about 30 feet in diameter, that are lined by concrete, that were engineered so when the lake did reach capacity and water went over the edges of the spillways, then these would funnel the water around the dam to keep the dam intact. And so these were designed to make sure that the dam never actually washes out and it remains safe. I think I mentioned in the intro, the last time that the spillways were actually used was in the winter of 1982, was the last time water went over the spillways. And again, lake levels have been kind of on a constant drop ever since. Some other engineering feats Becky alluded to was that if you have a bunch of water that's coming past and going downhill, that's a lot of energy. And so as water makes its way downhill, it's releasing a whole bunch of kinetic energy. And so in order to harness all of this energy of the water moving, it was also built into the plans of Hoover Dam to construct an electro power plant. And so as water is making its way through the intakes of the dam on both the Arizona and the Nevada side, gravity pulls that water down slope past great big turbines. And as those turbines spin, they generate electricity. And so electricity, one of the very first consumers of the electricity from Hoover Dam was the Los Angeles metro area. And subsequently, the electricity from Hoover Dam has been sold across the West to the power grid. And so here is one of the metal fittings that goes into the intake towers on both, again, the Arizona and the Nevada side. So this is a metal pipe that was specially fabricated on site at Hoover Dam during construction, especially of the intake pipes. These pipes are 30 feet in diameter. Each one of these sections is 11 feet across, and then these were all put together on site in order to create the sections that drive the water through the intake pipes down and through the power plant of the actual Hoover Dam. To this day, the plant still generates electricity and is still a functional hydroelectric plant. Up until recently, it was one of the largest producers of hydroelectric power in the West. I think there's a couple up in Washington that generate a little bit more electricity, but this was the first great big scaled operation in hydroelectric power, and up until recently was still a great big one. So by 1935, in September of 1935, President Roosevelt comes out to site in order to commemorate and to officially open up the dam. So 1935 is when Hoover Dam is officially recognized, even though construction doesn't complete until about 1936. So here's a historic photograph. Keeping in mind in the background here, we have Fortification Hill, that big flat top mesa back here. This is Fortification Hill from the dam at completion. So we can see water making its way around the dam through the intakes. We can see that Flat Canyon is filled up with water at this point. And we have a couple people here in the foreground for scale in this historical photograph. So showing Hoover Dam, you can kind of get a sense from where we're at in comparison to the dam. So here's Fortification Hill here, Fortification Hill there in the background. So again, this is the dam at completion. Hydroelectric power is up and running, and we have a full reservoir. It took about 3 years for the reservoir to actually fill up. As it filled up, it flooded a whole section of the Colorado River Valley in both Nevada and Arizona. So there's historical accounts of there was a small town not too far from the modern town of Overton here in Clark County, Nevada, called St. Thomas. And so this was a small town settled in the 1800s, and it was one of these communities that got flooded as lake levels rose as part of the filling of Lake Mead. And so there's historical accounts of the last citizen of St. Thomas begrudgingly leaving his house in a canoe as the town was flooded. But kind of a sad effect of the modern drought that we're in here in the Southwest, lake levels are actually so low right now, the foundations from the town site of St. Thomas are actually exposed right now. So whereas it used to be a scuba diving site to go check out the ruins of St. Thomas below water, you guys should go walk around there today. So here's another view from when Lake Mead when Hoover Dam was complete. Again, we have full water. These are the intake towers here. And so this is where the water is fed into and drawn down slope to the power plant below. So these are the power plants, one on the Nevada side, one on the Arizona side. Within those are the great big turbines that are pushed by the gravity of the water moving past the blades, generating the electricity. So I don't know if it shows up well in our shot or not, but in the background, especially if you're standing here in Boulder City, you can see there's great big transmission lines all over the place. And those transmission lines are what draws the electricity, or which feeds electricity to the general power grid of the Western United States.
You can see them all coming up the hill. So these are all the power lines coming up from the dam.
And so again, here's the historical photograph of Hoover Dam versus a more recent photograph of the area. And so you can see here, again, the power plants, which are still functional down here on the Arizona and the Nevada side. And then you can see the Hoover Dam here. And then Hoover Dam is actually the second tallest dam in North America. Up until recently, again, well, I guess not too recently, but it was the largest, at least the tallest dam. The tallest dam today is actually the Oroville Dam in Northern California. But Hoover Dam still spectacularly at 724 feet high above the Black Canyon below. So we can see here also in this photograph, you can see that bathtub ring I talked about earlier on. So that white line, those are all the minerals that were deposited on the volcanic rocks when lake level was much higher. So again, as soon as lake level has dropped since the 80s, we can see where that bathtub ring has been exposed. And again, just for geographic reference, that's Fortification Hill here in the background.
So I saw a quick question about the name. So we're going to get to that too. So the Hoover Dam, we all know Hoover Dam, but is initially named the Boulder Dam, given that name by the workers who helped with working, who was here to build it. So the Hoover Dam was built during the Great Depression. So we had a whole bunch of people coming here to southern Nevada, Arizona, to build this great big dam to get work. So Hoover Dam, and then in 1947, I'm sorry, I'll go back. So it was Boulder Dam. Some people called it Hoover Dam after the president. But then after Hoover left office, it wasn't officially the Hoover Dam or the Boulder Dam. It wasn't until 1947 when President Tillman officially named it the Hoover Dam. Before that, it was kind of whoever's political views was, the thing was calling the Hoover Dam or the Boulder Dam. So that's kind of how the Hoover Dam got its name. So it was not, some people called it the Boulder Dam until it got official name in 1947 as the Hoover Dam.
All right, thank you for covering that, Becky. Yeah. All right, so another cool aspect of modern engineering in this area is that historically, US 93, which is one of the major thoroughfares from Nevada down into Arizona, had to go across Hoover Dam. And so if you wanted to go from Las Vegas to Phoenix, you had to, there's a couple of other routes, but the main route was you had to drive over the dam. And so with modernization of our highway system and here in the Southwest, recently, a new interstate system has been planned for going from Phoenix all the way up through Nevada. And so as part of that, a bypass had to be built to Hoover Dam, because if you have cars driving over the top of the dam, it's one lane each direction. You can imagine the traffic nightmare trying to get between Las Vegas and Phoenix, and it's down to one lane each direction. And especially if a great big truck's trying to make its way over the dam, you have to get held up while that big truck makes its way across. So a modern feat of engineering is the Michael Callahan Pat Tillman Bridge. So this is a perspective looking from Hoover Dam at what is now I-11 US 93. And so this is still interstate highway, 4 lanes of traffic. As you're driving across it, you don't even know you're going over Black Canyon. And so this is the highest concrete span bridge at least in the Southwest. It's the second highest in North America. There's one in Colorado, which is a little bit higher than this one. Just to give you some perspective, the Black Canyon, the Michael Callahan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge, it's 100 feet taller than the Golden Gate Bridge, which spans the mouth of the San Francisco Bay between the South Bay and the North Bay. So again, the construction on this, being a Southern Nevada resident, being able to watch this thing under construction was an amazing feat of engineering. At some points, it looked like they were actually working vertically, pouring the concrete for the arch for the roadway above. So if you're driving between Phoenix and Las Vegas today on I-11 or US 93, you don't even know that you're going across this enormous feat of engineering. You can't even really see Hoover Dam off in the distance.
So I'll talk about one more engineering victory here. So spanning, the Hoover Dam was dedicated in 1935 to present day, 2020 here today. So a lot of people have questions about our water here in Southern Nevada, the water here in Lake Mead. What does it mean when it's, when we see the bathtub ring or when the water level's dropping? So as a Southern Nevada resident myself, it is important for water, right? So the Southern Nevada Water Authority has constructed a drinking straw, right? So we have 2 pumping stations, and they had started the 3rd engineering project of doing a 3rd drinking straw for when lake waters get even lower, kind of like the emergency water. So this will provide water security in Southern Nevada as this drought continues and the water levels continue to fall. So hopefully they'll come back up. Hopefully we'll get a few years of great snowpack up in the Rockies where we can fill Lake Mead up again. But it's definitely important, here in Southern Nevada or just the Southwest in general, because not just Nevada or Las Vegas gets their water from Lake Mead, Arizona and a lot of Southern California. So we all have to work together to preserve our water, to preserve our lake. So I'll wrap it up here soon so we can answer some questions. If you guys want more information about the Hoover Dam, the Boulder City Hoover Dam Museum, the Clark County Museum here in Clark County, the Springs Preserve, and of course the Lake Mead Visitor Center will all have great information if you're ever here out here in Southern Nevada. And as soon as the dam opens up, hopefully we can do another one to bring you live from the dam. But the dam does tours too if you're ever here to visit the dam.